What's up guys, Moonman here. Today I am in Tupelo, Mississippi. Tupelo famously being the birthplace of Elvis Presley and where they lived before he went to Memphis, where he bought his first guitar, where he played his first show. And right there is the city hall behind me. And right here is a statue of the king himself. Now Elvis's birthplace, his house that he was born in and all that, is actually on display here in Tupelo, and we're about to go to it. That's what this video is about, but I wanted to come here to show you this statue as an intro. The statue here was erected in 2012, the 35th anniversary of Elvis's death. And Elvis was actually playing a show virtually in this spot when he returned to Tupelo in 1956 to perform a concert right outside the city hall grounds. And it's called Touch the Hand of Elvis. It encourages people to touch Elvis's hand. It's a recreation of a photograph, him reaching out to touch hands of adoring fans. Thus brings us to the center of Elvis's birthplace. And right in there is where your Elvis experience begins. And the first section is just talking about Gladys and Vernon Presley, the parents of Elvis, and how they met whenever they were young and how they were able to get married, and that they never imagined where their lives would go from there. And there is their marriage license from the state of Mississippi in the county of Pontotoc. There's Elvis, Vernon, and Gladys right there. And there's a picture of Vernon and Gladys right there. Okay, so Old Saltillo Road is where Elvis's childhood and neighborhood was. They said it was viewed as the other side of the tracks because it was inhabited mostly by poor folks. And here is a mock-up of what it would have looked like back in the day. As you can see, there's a bunch of shotgun houses on there. Elvis on tour show member, taking care of business, TCB. And here's a bunch of different records and stuff. You see Frank Sinatra and Bing Crosby. There's Glenn Miller. It's talking about all the different type of music that had been in the Elvis household. They said at that time when music was changing and all that, they listened to a variety of things, including Roy Acuff, Ella Fitzgerald, Bill Monroe, Billie Holiday, Jimmy Rogers, Mahalia Jackson, and Tommy Dorsey. Had a great influence on Elvis. So this right here is supposedly the hammer that built Elvis's house that Vernon owned. And then there is here, this guy, supposedly the guy who delivered Elvis, because Gladys became pregnant and had to quit her job at the Tupelo Garment Center prior to her delivery date. In attendance at the home birth were her mother-in-law, Minnie, and the midwife, Edna Martin Robinson. Dr. William Robert Hunt, which is the guy right there, was called in to assist once the delivery became difficult. The first baby, Jesse Guerin, which was Elvis's twin brother, who died, he was stillborn at 4 a.m. on January 8th, 1935. Elvis Aaron arrived at 4:30 a.m. Gladys and Elvis were then taken to Tupelo Hospital's charity ward. Recovering there for 3 weeks, Gladys was unable to have more children. So Elvis was a twin. Could you imagine what would have been of that had his twin survived? And there's this calendar photo right here, and there's a little Elvis right there with the parents, and there's grown Elvis right next to it. So Elvis was asked in 1956, you have a happy time when you were a kid? And he replied, all my life I've always had a pretty nice time. We didn't have any money or nothing, but I always managed. We never had any luxuries, but we never went hungry. So Vernon actually went to prison for forging a check, supposedly. So Elvis and his mother formed a really strong bond, and it says they would ride 5 hours each way on a Greyhound bus often to visit Vernon at Parchman Prison. But during this time, they actually ended up losing the house. He's talking about how Gladys loved music and they listened to the Grand Ole Opry. So he was exposed to people like Ernest Tubb and Roy Acuff and all of them, and the Carter family. And they loved Minnie Pearl because she was funny. But there was a guy named Mississippi Slim. There's a picture of him right there. And he was supposed to be like a hillbilly star here in Tupelo. He's kind of local, somewhat local. And he accompanied Elvis on his first radio performance on the WELO Saturday afternoon amateur show. And it's called Jamboree. And Elvis really took in all the different musical influences. That's why his, repertoire of what types of music he played is so large. And there's Tennessee Ernie Ford right there. And there's the Strand Theater that stood in Tupelo. So let's talk about how important church was to Elvis. And there's a church pew right here. And there's actually a chapel, a working chapel here, because Elvis wanted that to be. And there's his 6th grade class of Milam School. Elvis is in the far right in the 3rd row. And you can see him right there. So it said Elvis had to stand on a chair to reach the microphone at the Children's Talent Contest of the Mississippi Alabama Fair and Dairy Show on October 3rd, 1945. The 10-year-old Elvis Presley could not have known where this, his first public appearance, would lead. He sung a song called Old Shell by Red Foley. He performed the sentimental song earlier at school assembly. His 5th grade teacher, Miss J.C. Grimes, was so impressed she entered him into the contest. He won 5th place. And it said he wore overalls and wire-rimmed glasses, and I'm assuming that's the glasses and potentially the same chair and maybe microphone. So instead of a rifle that he wanted, Elvis actually received a guitar. This is not the guitar, but it would have looked something like this as a gift, and it all started from there, from a hardware store here in Tupelo. Here's some of Elvis when he as an entertainer. See the different suits and stuff, and see that one right there. There he is wearing it. And this used to be Elvis's phone at Graceland. He gave it to his friend Janelle. Interesting. This is all memorabilia, photos, and ticket stubs from the last show Elvis ever performed. This talks about how they had to buy Graceland, essentially for privacy. He talks about Elvis being in the Army. You should pause it and read some of that. It also talks about Gladys dying and how they wanted to have the funeral at Graceland, but they couldn't. And then also how Elvis originally was buried at Forest Hill Cemetery before he got moved to Graceland. Photo op opportunity. This place is quite impressive. This is looking out of the gift shop where you first enter in right after you go out of that museum part. It's pretty cool. The Tupelo days that they were poor but proud. It said most pictures of Elvis were very candid like this. Most were taken by school or by the church because, you know, film and camera was very rare at the time. And there is the house he's born in right there. It's pretty cool. Here's some Elvis photos and memorabilia. There's a little ventriloquist little Elvis. Mr. Presley, are you ready to fly? Yes, sir, I'm ready to fly. I like Elvis. What? You hate Elvis? He's a jerk. I don't think he was a jerk. So this little area, it's called the Walk of Life. It has a block noting each year of Elvis's life from 1935 birth till he died in 1977. So it's symbolic. And this house right here, this is the backside of the house that the king of rock and roll was born in. Talking about the birthplace, the Elvis Presley Birthplace Park was begun with proceeds Elvis donated from his 1957 concert at the Mississippi Alabama Fair. Unchanged since it was built in the 30s, the two-room birthplace sat unoccupied and in poor repair. As Elvis rose to stardom, thousands of fans began coming to Tupelo to see his birthplace and wishing to see the inside of the house. Thus, it basically began a renovation project of the house and thus led to the concept of a birthplace museum. So the 1935 block, it has that Elvis was born in this house at 4:35 on January 8th, and Jesse Guerin was born 35 minutes earlier, stillborn. Then in 1936, the family and home survived devastating tornado. 37, they started attending church, and the family received commodities while Vernon was in prison here until in 1939, the home and car was repossessed. It says the birthplace of Elvis Presley. Elvis Aaron Presley was born January 8th, 1935 in this house, built by his father. Presley's career as a singer and entertainer redefined American popular music. Died August 16th, 1977. And that's all that is of it, just a little shotgun house. Nothing special. But the people who grew up in there grew up to be special. We're gonna walk up the stairs, rebuilt from the same ones Elvis would have been using. A swing, I'm sure they had a swing on their porch. We'll go ahead and in here and check the place out. Here is A mock-up of the bedroom. Elvis's father actually helped reconstruct it all and put everything together. Except it has air conditioning today, which it did not back then.
Yeah, Elvis was just 3. Brother and Daddy built the house in 1934. People have donated things to help it look like it did when the Presleys were here. This was their fireplace. Also, there's a wood-burning stove in the kitchen that's always been here. Elvis was born in this room. Also, baby Jesse that was stillborn. When Elvis was about 3 years old, Berman was convicted of check forgery, sentenced to 3 years in prison. Gladys and Elvis moved in with relatives because she couldn't make the payments on the house. But the governor pardoned him after 9 months instead of 3 years. And they lived different places in Tupelo till Elvis was about 14. Then they moved to Memphis. And this was their ice box.
Ice box? That thing that's open right there? Oh, that's pretty cool. It would not have had like air conditioning back then, right?
No, they didn't.
Would it even have
couldn't
power?
afford electricity either.
Okay.
But the people here put the lights up.
Yeah.
But the Presleys used lanterns or candles, I would imagine.
Yeah. This is what you call a shotgun house? Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Their outhouse would have been outside, a pump or a well for water.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's not, the house isn't much, but the people who came out of it is like crazy insane. So this is Elvis at 13 years old, before he became the king. At this time, maybe you would say he's a prince in the making, but this is right before he went to Memphis, and there's him with the guitar, presumably maybe the one he bought here in Tupelo at the hardware store. This little sign here says, it's on the Mississippi Country Trail, Elvis Country. Raised on country here in Tupelo, first introduced as the Hillbilly Cat, then by RCA Victor as the hottest new name in country music. Elvis Presley's revolutionary musical mix always had country as a key ingredient, appearing on the country charts over 50 times. Elvis Presley's music pushed traditional country towards the modernizing Nashville sound, which followed the pop, if not the rock and roll path he'd fashioned. Elvis would record the country songs he loved throughout his career. That's pretty cool. I know he also did Blue Moon of Kentucky, is one of the first songs he ever recorded. That was a bluegrass song by Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys. And I know eventually he would be in the $1 Million Quartet, which was him, Carl Perkins, Johnny Cash, and Jerry Lee Lewis, as they all were signed to RCA or to Sun Records at the time. This says Elvis Presley and the Blues. Elvis Presley revolutionized popular music by blending the blues he first heard as a youth in Tupelo with country, pop, and gospel. Many of the first songs he recorded for the Sun label in Memphis were covers of earlier blues recordings by African Americans. He continued to incorporate blues into his records and live performances for the remainder of his career. And walking the path right from that is the Assembly of God Church. So this was actually Elvis's childhood church. This Assembly of God Church actually got moved across the street from where it originally stood, so they could build a bigger one. So at that point, this became a house. Well, over time, it became abandoned or whatever. And in 2008, they actually restored the building and moved it here. And this was the church that Elvis attended as a kid here in Tupelo. Right now, it's already started, but they're doing a church service. That's a short one. That'd be like when Elvis was there. So we cannot enter at the moment, but you can buy tickets to that. We just did not do that. You can pause that and read it right there. There's an outhouse. Here would be the Elvis Presley Memorial Chapel. Go ahead and open this door up here. And this is a full-on chapel right here. That's pretty cool. You see piano, stained glass, the pulpit. It's pretty awesome in here. This is called the Fountain of Life. It actually starts out at his birth and goes all the way around, water pouring out, to the time he goes to Memphis. And then over there denotes his death. That's pretty awesome. Here's some murals of Elvis's life. There's the doctor who delivered him, his parents, him, a bunch of different blues artists. There's Muddy Waters right there. Shows the tornado of 1936. That sign that's in downtown Tupelo. It's in Mississippi, the birthplace of American music. That it is. And it's kind of a little history trail. There's Mississippi Slim that we talked about earlier. Kind of a walk-through trail showing different dates and time in Elvis's life. See, as you see, there's Memphis, 1948. There's a thing about that Mississippi Alabama fair. The lady said they no longer have the fair here in Tupelo. Then there's Gladys Vernon Elvis. Huh. Just a Mississippi boy. So I'm making this long, it's not really that long of a walk, and ascent up to the top here, where it has some pretty significant symbolic statues of Elvis. Sign says, in remembrance of Elvis Presley, it says, in his later years, this overlook became one of Elvis's favorite places to visit. It has been developed for the enjoyment of his friends and fans. His tribute to his artistry and the contribution of his music has made to the world. And it overlooks the little church there, which wouldn't have been there at the time. There's a building with a gold top over there, and there's the compound. It is honestly a pretty nice view. It was at 11, a special gift on January 8th, 1946. His mother Gladys took him to Tupelo Hardware to buy. The president Elvis thought at his 11th birthday he was getting a .22 caliber rifle or a bike, but it was dangerous. After a bit of crying, he was persuaded to buy a guitar. The guitar cost $7.75, and a birthday gift and a priceless legacy to the rest of us. It was a gift that kept on giving. Elvis became a larger-than-life personality with a revolutionary influence on music worldwide, yet he always maintained his humble spirit in keeping true to his roots in East Tupelo. About his career as an entertainer, how he scored his first #1 single in 1956 with Heartbreak Hotel. He went on to chart 17 more #1 hits. He has been inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Country Music Hall of Fame, the Gospel Music Association's Gospel Music Hall of Fame. Just a kid from Mississippi. Awesome. Talking about his Aloha from Hawaii concert, he chose the red, white, and blue eagle to symbolize America and his global audiences. This was the first concert by a single entertainer to be broadcast live by satellite to millions worldwide. A star live from the stars. The dynamic combination of talent, charisma, and luck propelled a poor young boy from East Tupelo, Mississippi to royalty as the king of rock and roll. You see 18 #1 hits, 38 top 10 hits, 85 top 30 hits. He spent 80 weeks at #1. This statue is called Becoming. This shows Elvis as a young boy overlooking Tupelo as he would do with his guitar, perhaps dreaming of a better life. And behind him is the adult version of himself, poised as the king of rock and roll, someone who never forgot his roots, an icon still to this day. And the sheer amount of people that are here to see his birthplace and visit Tupelo to see Elvis on a daily basis, astonishing. You did good, kid. You did good. And just real quick, I wanted to show there's this little koi pond and little area called Reflections here that you can just come and relax and sit down, maybe eat some lunch. It's right down from a pavilion, and truly beautiful place.
I bought a couple extra that I have in my storage unit wrapped in plastic, so it's
Yeah.
Elvis.
Looking for merchandise? I think this is the one.
Now, the church is the only thing that operates.
Not a creep filming in the restroom, just showing that there's a TV there. All right, guys, that's it here in Tupelo, Mississippi at the Elvis Presley Birthplace and Museum. It was a pretty fun walk around. I think we did it maybe an hour and 15 minutes, maybe an hour and a half. You can take your time and obviously read more if you want and do more things. And there's also, you can sit and watch all the presentations. It's just really cool to see that he never really forgot where he came from. And he was the king of rock and roll, with the biggest stars in music history ever was born. It's a little 2-room shotgun house right here in Tupelo. So I encourage you guys to come visit. And if you like videos like this, go ahead and subscribe, because there will be more. So like, subscribe, share, Moon Man, he's out.